All right, good morning, good afternoon, good night. It's Tuesday, March 7th. It's 2:04 p.m. EST here, and we are in the Zahnymous group, and we're having OGI, our Grim Emporium, for a partnership AMA. Let's hear about your project.
Yeah, really happy to be here. Thanks to the team. Met them last week for a really good chat. They think this would be a really good synergy for our two projects. So yeah, my name is Nick. I'm the founder of our Grim Imperium, which is what we're hoping to be one of the true, Web3 gaming experiences to come out in recent times. To give everyone a bit of a background, we're looking to make a turn-based strategy game very similar to, I'm not too sure the age of the people in this group, or how big of gamers or sort of old school gamers there are, but there was a game that came out on Game Boy Advance many years ago called Advance Wars, and more recently there was one called Into the Rift, which kind of tried to capture that look and feel. So if anyone knows that, that's kind of the style that we're going for. It's an isometric turn-based strategy game. But one thing we're really trying to do differently is combine it with another personal love of mine and a very popular real-world hobby, which is tabletop wargaming. And the main reason for that is it lends itself to the sort of self-custody digital asset collection realm that we sort of are in. So if you think about, or if anyone knows about that scene, people spend more of their time in those hobbies, collecting and, assembling and building than they do actually playing. So what we wanted to do is to take that collectible asset plus also the economy that flows around that and combine it with an actual easy to get engaged with but deep mechanics of turn-based strategy, and sort of meld them in, and then cover off a bunch of the more modern style game mechanics, PVE, PVP, seasonal content, and then we're just going to grow from there. So yeah, we're looking to really have a proper gaming experience with a very deep hobby-based collectible wrapper around it, essentially.
Hey, so real quick,
and try to make it. Sorry.
Yeah, so real quick, I actually understand what you're talking about. You're talking about like a strategy type of game where it's almost like open world.
It'll be open world is probably a little bit broad. We're gonna have there will be a PVE campaign to go through, but what we're really hoping the players will dive into is more of the PvP aspect, and the sort of guild versus guild. So to give you an idea, when someone would come and challenge another player, what they would do is one player would decide to take one army from a faction they've been building and verse another player, and in that aspect they would set up essentially a virtual tabletop and play. If anyone is aware of things such as like Warhammer 40,000 or BattleTech, where it's less about it's almost like a rock paper scissors style situation where, depending on what your opponent brings to the table, you may have to change up what you're doing, change up the strategy, but you'll have a very wide array of situational units to choose from, and that's sort of where the PvP elements come in. The PvE really comes down to being able to progress along a chain of scenarios, and it really is there to work towards fleshing out the units you have available, and then eventually, once we have more than the starting 3 factions, really being able to dive into other factions and building up armies of their own.
So before we go into too much of the game, I'm really
Yeah.
curious of the game is already built. Is it just like the very beginning? Is it the thought process, the idea stage, or like players? Is the map at least mapped out? Like, what's the completion on the game?
Yeah, we're in early alpha at the moment. So to give you a timeline for what we're looking at, so we're looking to do our pre-sale this month, and then the first part of the game, which will be the aforementioned sort of army configuration and model builder, which will be something akin to taking the disassembled pieces of an army and structuring them and putting them together, putting a unique visual flair on it. That's going to be released within the first 2 weeks of our pre-sale, and then the first couple of scenarios for our PVE campaign will be about 3 to 4 weeks after that, and then PvP will be another month after that. So at around the 10 to 12 week mark will be our sort of early access for the sort of end-to-end playable of the game, right? And then from there, it'll be a case of iterating, releasing more content. And the 1.0 will be later on this year, but it'll be fully playable by, what are we in now? March, by June.
Can you share with us some of what's already built, like kind of like just some drafts maybe of what it looks like? Because a lot of the investors or community members that are in here right now, I think they would be really curious to see maybe what a player would look like, or even like a draft of maybe with the game. You have anything that you can share with us?
Yeah, I can post some stuff in the chat. So we do have some art and some concept and things like that in our Discord. So yeah, it's on our Discord. Do you want to share it now, or do you want to get people to jump in?
So actually, real quick, while we're having the AMA, if you could just take a second and then just post some of those images in our group, so then our group could view everything while we talk about the game building. Because I have some more questions that probably everyone's itching to learn as well about the development and about who's really developing, everyone's role on the team, etc. But I honestly, last time I talked to you, it does sound like you're actually trying to do something big in the space, which I love. But before we go into it, I would like people to have like a visual understanding of what the game's going to look like. And I'll ask why in a second.
Yeah, easy. All right, let me get a couple of ones that I think would give a good indication as to sort of what we're going for.
Because there's so many types of graphics of games. There's like that kind of like pixel art. There's kind of like that anime of certain games. There's more of a realistic form of graphics to a game. So honestly, I don't even know the answer to it. So I think it would help the community base exactly what your game is going to look like and kind of envision it a little bit.
I'm good to post images in the chat. Yep.
Yeah, man. Post whatever you want.
So these two are essentially what the battle map. So when we're thinking about a map, like a battle, either it's a PVE or PvP, this is that sort of isometric view of the battle map, and that scale is kind of what you're looking at when you're placing units and making strategic decisions, as to where they're going to go, right? Next up is what we're going to aim to really go, and this is sort of where the Advance Wars or Into the Rift style comes from. When there's two parts of the army that are versing off against each other, it will move into a split screen. Still that sort of isometric, but it's more of a it's a lower gradient, right? So you're a bit more flat towards the battle map, and you'll see the engagement. And at this point, this is kind of where also the tabletop stuff comes in. These battles will be determined by essentially rolls of digital dice, right? And there'll be a lot more detail in the models at this point. And then the other big thing we're going for, which is the model builder, I'm trying to find a good one for this, is we'll almost have, what we're aiming for is something akin to that level of detail in almost like a 3D, like a 3D modeler, right? Where if you imagine those models that I've just posted, imagine that they were exploded into various pieces, right? And the pieces meant that models could be assembled in different poses. They could be assembled with different, outfits, weapon outloads, like different aesthetics. That's what we're going for. So we're going for, when you're in the model configuration or in your army builder, you're looking at quite high detail. This is also because a lot of the love for the tabletop comes from the assembling and the and painting to an extent. And then in game, it's going to be, that first couple of photos that I was showing, where it's a top down pixel art, but it's almost more of a 2.5D, right? There are some 3D aspects to it. And then down into that lower level, which will, try to have a much more higher detail model where they face off against each other. So I think those three kind of capture the main parts, and then obviously the UI that wraps around that.
Honestly, the reason I wanted you to send pictures and show what stuff is going to look like is because I say one of the biggest problems with a lot of crypto games is they're either just not fun to play, or it's just not of the highest of quality. Especially like upcoming projects that aren't really established, that don't have a crazy high budget. So that's why I really asked, because I think conceptually you can get an understanding of how it's going to look like. Because honestly, now that you showed those pictures, you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of back when I used to play Black Ops. The arcade version of the game where it wasn't like Black Ops, it was like Black Ops Arcade. And you could go around. It has like your individual that's shooting everywhere, and it's that like it's not really isometric, but it's that like type of perspective to where the enemies are coming at you, but you can see the entire map. It's like bird's eye, for example.
Yeah.
Now that
it's really to give that it's kind of to give the you can imagine yourself being on one side of the table and your opponent being on the other, right? So it's like flat grid. You can see everything, but that in reality it comes down to positioning, and it comes down to at the end of the day, it comes down to the roll of the dice more than anything, right?
So really, who's building the game?
So we've got a Unity dev that I've worked with in the past on non-crypto stuff before, and he is pretty much a one-man army for a lot of things. He comes from a mobile background, and this is the first time he's coming into the crypto space. So he's very much traditional gaming, but that's why we're building a traditional game with just Web3 integration, right? There isn't so much in here that is that different from any of the other games you'd find on Steam or even on the iOS store or the Google Play Store, right? When we talk about Web3 integration, the core parts that are the NFTs and SFTs. So the units we were just talking about will come in an NFT box and then be able to be assembled. And then, we have obviously our ERC20 token that we're using for the pre-sale that's not tied directly to the game. I do actually want to really, stress that. The ERC20 token that we're launching in our pre-sale this month will not be a economy token. And then the other aspects that are managed by Web3 will be the player account within the game and our in-game currency, which again is not a token-based economy. It's similar to any other in-game currency for World of Warcraft with gold, Lost Ark with gold and fions. So, we are really taking a traditional Web 2, gaming approach, just with the really with the self custody of assets with from the Web 3 side.
Which honestly I respect. I respect not doing a pay to or um,
Play to
I don't know.
earn.
Yeah, play to earn. That's what I was looking for. Or looking for. I really respect the choice not to do play to earn because I really do believe that it's like unsustainable and in a lot of different ways. So I love that you are trying to incorporate a way that the game can be successful without just draining the LP or without draining any liquidity and really hurting the token because users are just going to keep playing. The more users play, the more the money has to be coming from somewhere. So the fact that you're really trying to focus on building the game and not create a Ponzi scheme while building like an actual game is already so much ahead of a lot of other play to earn games or even any other games or any other games in crypto. So how big is your team exactly?
It's a small team. So there's myself, there's my Unity dev, and then I've got a more traditional back-end architect that's working on the AWS side and the Azure side as well, because Azure is how the game engine works, and AWS is what we're using for our website and DApp and everything. So we are a small team. The idea will be to grow as we grow as well. But yeah, we're a very lean team at the moment, and I'm the only one that sort of, I guess, comes from a crypto world. The other two are very much traditional developers: Unity, C#, Go, AWS, Azure.
Really good that the people that are on your team are very specific in the industry that they're working on. I really wish they were here, but no problem that they're not. Obviously,
Yeah, they're actually they're very much not part of the crypto space, right? So I doubt that we'll. Yeah.
So other than that, though, so it sounds like there's only 3 people. Is that right?
That's correct at the moment. 3 core, yeah.
3 core. Okay. So pretty much your plan is to launch this token and then take from the token, launch the game throughout the roadmap. I'm assuming. So if you have a crypto background and the other 2 people don't have a crypto background, they're very specific to the game, which is really good. But let's get into the security of the token because that's kind of also what you're publicizing is not only an amazing game, but also a token that you can buy, which is also a speculative asset, right? So let's
Correct.
go into who's the one that's building the actual token.
Oh, so I have a background of dev as well, and Solidity is something I picked up back in 2021. So I wrote our contract, which has just been audited by Contract Wolf as well. So it's up and the contract is verified and everything, so people can feel free. It's actually a very, very lean contract in terms of what's out there as well, right? Because it's super simple tax. We don't have any complex mechanics in there. It's not a rewards token. It's not it's got nothing else that sort of is that there's no meta aspects to it that are sort of any of the trending mechanics and everything like that. It's very bare bones because it's meant to be used as a it was built for the pre-sale, right? I was talking to you guys about this last week when we had our first meeting. My original idea was to never have a token attached to it, a real token. We'd have a smart contracts that would govern various parts of the game, but I really didn't want to have a token tied to the game because I always feel that people will only look at the market cap and the price of the token and equate that to the value of the game, which I really didn't want. However, that's not the space that we play in, right? And I originally did go to our pre-sale partner and try to pitch that. And I got some buy-in, but a lot of people were just confused. They really just didn't understand, how we were looking to raise funds, how we were looking to get the game moving, how we were looking to market it. And I'll be honest, it was actually really hard to do the startup marketing. You know how many of those coin discovery and project discovery sites just won't let you list unless you have a token contract attached to them? Like it was actually a barrier every step of the way. So I went back and worked with the team and my pre-sale partner, and figured out what was the least intrusive way that we could do this, and that's where our ERC20 token was born.
Why didn't you look at any like Web 2.0 marketing or any strategies that way that another game to try and at least convert maybe Web 2 to Web 3?
That's a good question as well, and it comes down to funding. We're running a very, very lean, which also means lean budget. This has been self-funded out of my pocket from inception, and to be honest, the appetite in the VC space or anywhere that's doing angel and private funding is quite low compared to where it was. And even the ones that are still looking at the crypto space, because of the shocking decline in value in gaming in this space, just won't touch it. Right? You're looking at most projects from their all-time high down 97 or 98%. It's just not an attractive asset for traditional markets.
Have you built the economics of your token to kind of support what you're trying to do with the game? One strategy that we personally did is we had a very high liquidity, which was, kind of paired with the token, because we realized that people might be using ZA through our own ecosystem, which might actually hurt price just a little bit because we allow that easier liquidation feature. So we built our economics, our tokenomics, you can properly call it, to make sure that we were sustainable. So for example, a sell wouldn't happen. It wouldn't just hurt the chart. It actually really doesn't affect it because of how we built the economy around it. Are you looking to make this pretty much kind of the same strategy, like not a volatile asset, but an asset that you buy with really high liquidity? Like I would use a liquidity higher than we used because pretty much when we talked about it, the purpose of the token is not really to be speculative. It's actually utility based. It's supposed to be you buy the token, you somehow connect it with the game, and then bam, you get extra perks in the game, right? So it's not you're looking to really get a profit. You're really looking to use it. So the token in the game is almost synonymous. Have you looked into avenues like that for your actual token creation?
Yeah, so you're right. The token is definitely not meant to be a something that's tied intrinsically to the value of the game. You're not meant to be able to look at the token and say, well, the token's doing bad, so the game's worth nothing, right? That was my whole, thing that I never wanted to happen. But you always need to give people a reason to hold a token. And the way that we've seen that done in the past is, some form of utility or some form of rewards system. So what we're going to do is the token will have utility in the game without also adding in that whole play to earn or pay to win, right? So by holding the token and connecting your wallet to the game, to the player account within the game, you will get certain rewards, but they won't be rewards to the point where it gives you an unfair advantage in the game. So for one, it'll give you a steady stream of the in-game currency. And again, the in-game currency is used only for purchasing new units, upgrading your sort of army or commander, but only for the PVE scenarios, not for PvP. All PvP will be normalized. And in the future, one of the main uses for the token will be when we release seasonal content, we will have something akin to a battle pass that will be able to be leveled up over the course of that season. And a big part of, or a big usage for the token will be for those that, don't want to have to grind out to get to the higher level perks of that battle pass. They can, spend the OGI B, which is our ERC20 token. They can spend that to level up the battle pass, similar to how in Fortnite or in I think Call of Duty Warzone has something similar where you can pay to level up your battle pass and get the cosmetics. That's what we're going to tie in as well.
Pretty much a freemium model. It's free to play. Yeah. If you pay, then you can get extra perks. I understand the model really very well, actually. Very interesting way to go about the actual game and actual playing of it. Yeah, dude, I actually respect the freemium model. I think it's a lot better than connect your wallet. You have to have the token to actually play the game. It's more like you don't have to have the token to play with the game, but you can actually connect your wallet and then play and then be able to get an extra perk. I really like that model. So is the game only a desktop, right? Is it going to be on the App Store? Is it going to be on Android? Tell us about how you're actually planning to integrate OGIB into OGI. Obviously, we kind of talked about how you're going to incorporate the token with the game, but I really want to know mainly about that, if anything.
Yeah, so it's actually being oh, sorry.
No, you can go. Yeah.
So the game's being built in Unity WebGL, right, which is actually the web-based browser version of Unity. So it'll be browser-based, but for the most part, on release, it'll work. It'll essentially be desktop, right? It could be playable on mobile. The experience might be a bit lackluster just because of the screen size. Until we release our mobile versions, which, because it's been built in Unity, it means it is cross-platform, but the way we're building it right now will be, to be used within a desktop browser. So you don't need to, it won't be sort of platform specific. So it's not going to be like Mac. It's not going to be Windows. It's not going to be, Linux. If you can run it on a browser, it'll be run in a browser, sorry. And then the idea will be to port it over into probably Google Play first, because Google Play is more receptive to crypto or Web3 integration. And then iOS, once we kind of sort out the App Store piece, right? On Google Play, you just have to advertise that it has Wallet Connect and or MetaMask integration, and say, very clearly that there is Web3, that there's NFTs, but we're seeing a lot more of them come into the market. So we don't see any barriers from going from desktop browser to Android very quickly, and then iOS after that.
So I'm assuming that it's technically a dApp, right?
It will be. Well, the game itself's not a dApp, but it'll be integrated into a dApp. So we'll have a dApp that wraps around the game client.
Okay, so pretty much anyone can play without connecting their wallet. But if you do connect your wallet and it reads the token, then you would get the extra perks.
Yeah, we are looking to have a non wallet connected player account, because the player account will also exist. Well, the player account will exist within our Azure background and then within the Unity game client. And then when someone does connect their wallet and do that, that's sort of when it will sync up, and there will be one of the things that we're doing, which I haven't seen anyone else do. I'd love to know, because I'd love to also talk to them about the struggles that we kind of face with this. Is one of the main things we wanted to do is we wanted to really protect from replay attacks within the game experience, right? And what I mean by that is, because we still have some essence of value within the game, which is the in-game currency, and that is governed by the smart contract. It's technically possible within a smart contract to take a transaction and just replay it, right? Unless you safeguard against that. So what we're doing with that is we're actually going to generate a public-private key set or key pair from the Unity game engine when someone sets up their account, right? And what that'll do is that'll be used to sign any of the in-game transactions, which means that extra layer of security is there so that people can't abuse the contracts and, mint because it's not a token, not mint, but like generate unlimited currency and do all those sort of, what we kind of see in some other play to earn games where people exploit the smart contract to essentially drain the liquidity. We're hoping to prevent any sort of that exploitation through this mechanic, and that's the only way we can do that is through a tight integration between the Unity game client and the smart contracts.
Also, getting the game audited too. I think you all should definitely get the game audited, especially if you're going to be integrating some type of Web3 mechanics, because people are connecting their wallet. I think it would be really beneficial to getting that actual process audited to not only protect the game but also protect users that are playing the game. I think that is extremely important. So let's get into some of the KYCs. Nick, have you been KYC'd? Has your team been KYC'd? Okay.
Yes, perfect. I actually just finished my KYC with Assured like 2 days ago. So they posted the announcement on their Twitter. It's up on our website at the moment. So yes, I am KYC plus with them.
Yeah. Can you post it in the Zahnymous chat as well, just so people know? Because again, it's the same concept of the actual game and everything. So honestly, Nick, I have a question for you, man. And this is something that I personally dealt with when I started my own project. And I kind of want to see what your response to it will be. So when having your own technically DApp or integrating a DApp, it's really hard to get a consistent user base. It's really hard to get people to constantly use your technology that you're building, even if it's just a game or even if it's as simple as just connecting a wallet, especially with a lot of distrust in this space. So what are you going to do to make sure that you build that specific niche? Make sure that you build that specific customer base that's constantly going to be using your product. What is your strategy to grow your brand and to grow OGI?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because, look, I'll be the first to say that particularly like with our focus on, tabletop and wargaming, that's an incredibly niche part of real world, tabletop gaming as it is, right? I do see a real draw in that those hobbies are incredibly difficult to get into for a number of reasons, right? They're cost prohibitive. To even get started on those sort of hobbies, it's hundreds of dollars, right? Then it's time prohibitive, it's space prohibitive. It's not even just buying a model, or buying a box of models. It's like all the equipment that goes around it. Then, finding people to play with is quite difficult. Generally, like you either do it with a group of friends, or it's actually very difficult to have a good experience with it. So a lot of that is what we're really trying to do with this, is to, for those that have ever wanted to do this style of gameplay before, which I wish there was. I play it in real life, but sometimes I don't have a whole day to go and kill with my mates playing it, right? I've got a family and a job and all that other stuff. So having a digital representation of something that I love and that I can just dive into, play quickly, I can theory craft, I can mess around with things without literally without wasting hundreds of dollars if I stuff something up, if I don't like the way I've built something. So a lot of what we're trying to do is take these kind of prohibitive things that are out there in the real world and put them with fast-paced gameplay, something that is easy to jump into. You can spend a bunch of time doing it, but that's not really what we're aiming for. We're aiming for very, very quick games, so that people don't have to sit there for hours and do it. They can just jump in and out like that. So what we're really aiming to do is to make this something that is not a chore for people, and it really scratches that itch for those that have always wanted to get into these sort of hobbies, but just haven't had the means beforehand.
You want to know what I like so much, Nick, to be honest, about OGI? And this is personally something that not many projects that I've even talked to actually encounter. You're building something that you actually want to use and that you want to actually play yourself. And as selfish as that sounds, it reminds me a lot of just someone that actually wants to do something that they're passionate about. Kind of similar. I'm not going to compare it to my project, but I really do like. I love that when you talk about your game, you're saying, well, I want to build it how I want to play it. I want to build it how, if I don't like this, I can fix this to what I like. Even though that does sound selfish, it builds such a good product because you're not building just a product for people. You're building a product that you will actually enjoy because it's what your specific niche would like. And I give you a lot of love over that because there's not many people building something that they truly want to constantly use and that they truly have a passion for. So I just love that so much. Just talking back and forth with you, I love that you're really trying to build a game that you want to play, that you want to enjoy. I love that. That's really awesome. One thing I really want to see is more of the game being built. I would love to see more concepts. I would love to see even a video. Have you gotten as far as to get like a kind of like a demo ready for us?
We actually will have one ready for our pre-sale. We're working on it right now. So what we're actually going to build is the demo. Sorry, my dog's trying to jump up at me. We're going to have a sort of a marketing video that's going to be released along with the pre-sale that will be that concept of the army builder that we were talking about. So being able to see an exploded out unit be assembled into various different, configurations. So that's something that me and the Unity dev are working on right now, because I also agree, right? Like I can talk as much as I want, but the reality is people will want to see something hard and concrete to get excited about. So that's what we're going to have ready for the pre-sale, so that we can show people that this isn't just a vaporware. This isn't just a pretty pitch deck or a nice looking website, right? So I don't have one for you right now, but I will by the time we get to pre-sale.
It's honestly the single most important thing, either doing a pre-sale or even showing transparency. There is a lot, and this is not your fault, my fault, or anyone else's fault, except people that have let down investors, especially in the Web3 space and especially in BSC. No one really likes being like, oh, these are just like talk, right? People want to see, what does it look like? What am I going to be playing? So I definitely agree with having concrete data, or even a concrete just version of the game, a demo, even a trial, maybe, hey, test it out, say us what you like. And honestly, having even users in the ZA community getting like an exclusive play of the game, that would be really beneficial because it gets people like really a better like connection between you and the project when they know that their work is not just words. There's so many empty promises and so many false promises. So I definitely encourage, and honestly, we can invite you back to the Zahnymous group whenever everything is kind of built in the demo versions, maybe get a playable system going. But honestly, I really like where you're kind of headed with the project.
Yeah. So one thing just on that with the early access piece. So as we're not really going straight into a 1.0, I wouldn't say that the full version is going to be released, in that sort of 3-month timeline that I gave. What you will get with the pre-sale though, is that we are going to offer, so you get the token, but as long as you hold the tokens that you get from pre-sale, and this goes for any pre-sale, right? This is, not private, not public. It's just anybody that engages, it comes in, invests with us for the pre-sale, will, as long as they hold, will receive a redeemable NFT voucher, right? And from that gets them early access to any of those stages in the game that we release. Other than that, we will not be allowing anybody within that 3-month period to be tried. We'll be releasing steady content and everything, but the only people who will be able to actually get in and try these versions of the game will be those that came in, or where we have a partnership with someone and we want to bring their community in. So exactly as you said before. So there definitely is scope for that, but that 3-month period after pre-sale is either going to be people sort of looking from the outside, or it's going to be those that sort of backed us from the beginning, or those that we have partnerships with. So I'd love to be able to do that. And yeah, we can figure out what that looks like, post pre-sale.
one thing we're actually thinking about doing here at ZA is I've joked about like getting into games, even though we have nothing to do with games. We are a financial technology company at our honestly at our core. It's what we specialize in. But honestly, we've been looking for stuff to do as a community to kind of like work together, play, have fun, not just be so much about business. So I would love to our community kind of start off with the early access, playing against each other, beta versions, have everyone that's even in this AMA or in our group to really kickstart a user base for you. Because as we establish this partnership and as we grow, I was telling you earlier about how much I truly care about my partnerships having longevity, my partnerships having sustainability, because I don't want to have this partnership, we get all hype and then everything ends up dying. It makes us look bad.
Yeah.
And also it makes, that's why sometimes you have to choose your partners carefully, but at the end of the day, it is a numbers game if you're trying to grow rapidly. But when you're talking about sustainability, I would love to be able to have that early access for the ZA community. And then you can take a lot of our critiques, because one thing I love about our group is we're extremely honest. If we tell you, hey, we don't like this specific thing about it, just take it as as constructive criticism, because everyone here loves to really have their point, because there's nothing that someone's going to say and it'd be like, oh, shut up, or, oh, F you, whatever. Everyone's opinions are highly respected in the ZA community. So it doesn't matter who you are. So I think that will be really beneficial to building a wonderful game for OGI.
Yeah, no, I'm actually really in favor of having a bit more of a brutal community giving feedback. Hopefully everybody is open to also being told that certain decisions are made and won't be changed. But I'm definitely open to having, and also different communities, because, ones that come from a heavy gaming background will have a certain, visual idea, but also an idea of how mechanics work. But it's also good to get people from outside of that want to come in, that may have felt that like they could never, get into gaming, and they want to. So having the different perspectives, I think, is also really important.
Completely, man. I wasn't just say like if someone from them says that they don't like the colorways, don't change the colorways. I'm talking more about helping build an actual user base, because one thing that we could do here at ZA is every Thursday, every Wednesday, maybe Saturday, weekends, whatever, we could have competitions where we build teams, kind of have like that PVE, where we can have that team versus your team play each other, and whoever wins gets X amount of ZA or BUSD rewards, just to help out our partners kind of kickstart. And it kind of gives a beta, like a user access to see what problems, what kinks, etc., just to be beneficial, kind of like an exclusive partnership.
Yeah, I love that idea. I love the idea of like little tournaments in communities. Be cool to see some like community versus community tournaments as well. I'm all down for that. I think that'll have to come, as I said, like PvP and eventual sort of larger scale, which we're kind of doing guild versus guild, which is kind of where that idea comes from, like having a ZA guild versus another guild in the space. That is at the back end of that time period. So open to start planning and everything once we get into that. But I just want everyone to be fully aware that PvP does take a lot more, because it includes matchmaking. There's a lot more that goes into the sort of the back end from a game design on that. So that is last on the list, unfortunately, because it is one of the biggest pieces. We want to get people into the game first of all and playing before we release our PvP. But when that time comes, that's a really cool idea.
Definitely. So again, honestly, you've answered a lot of my questions regarding the KYC. You shared it, the contract. I would like for the game to be audited when it's finished. I think that's very important for consumer safety as well. Even if you are as honest as you can be, people like that sense of security, especially because, man, this space has gotten wrecked. Honestly.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I'm kind of talking so much about having our users have early access to the game, having them play, because a lot of people have that feeling that, oh, it's going to be in a couple months or it's going to be in a year. I'll just wait. And that's one thing that it's not our fault. It's just the people that have just been untrustworthy and unhonest that's kind of ruined that space to where you have to kind of already show the product a little bit before you even get any type of acquisition. And that's the reality that we're kind of in right now. So I'm going to give you some community questions, and we can head off. You can do the closing remarks after that, and we can go about our lovely day. How does that sound?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, sweet. Give me just 1 second. I'm going to pick out the best ones. A lot of these were before we kind of discussed, so a lot of them we've already answered. So give me just 1 second.
Yeah, it's all good. There was one about a marketplace.
Yeah, so there's one right here, which is really interesting. There are two problems faced with P2E players. Firstly, the large amount of resources and capital that many games require to play. And secondly, is the decrease in income when tokens lose their value. How does your team solve this problem?
Yeah, that's this is a really good one that we like. I think these questions always come down to: will there be play to earn, and how is the game economically sustainable? So, as I think I've said a couple of times, there is no play to earn in the game, right? The game is not going to have the ability to earn a currency from playing, and that you can just go and sell on the open market. That's the main thing, right? So the smart contract that governs the game, the player, it's not an ERC20 smart contract, right? What it does have is a shadow ledger that maintains the balance of the in-game rewards. Those in-game rewards internally will have a basis in being worth something, because if I get a little bit deep on the way that something like Warhammer works in the real world, is when you're constructing these armies, they're based on a point system, right? So like a 500 points army, a 1,000 point army, a 2,000 point army. Now, there is a way in the real world to say that 1 point is worth X amount of like cents, right? Or X amount of fiat value. We're doing something similar where the in-game currency, while it's not going to have a value of its own, you could say that it'll be worth around, and what we're pegging this to is about 8 to 10 cents, right? So probably a good way to look at it is almost like EVE Online, if anyone knows about that. EVE Online has like an in-game currency as well that does technically have like a US dollar equivalent. This is similar, but we don't have a liquidity, and it's not something that can be pulled out of the game. Now, what we will allow is in-game currency, which is the OGI credits, can be traded in-game on the P2P marketplace. So me as a player, if I'm, playing a hell of a lot and I'm grinding, I could sell those tokens to someone else on the P2P marketplace in the same way that gold farmers on games such as WoW, sell. They don't allow, it's part of their terms and conditions, but we're going to allow that sort of transaction. But this does not occur through a DEX or through a chart. It's purely in-game, right? So I want to make that clear that we will allow P2P transactions, but they will not be a case of taking a token and market dumping it, right? The ERC20 token that we have, which is the OGIB contract, will not be in the game itself. There's no, you can transfer OGIB into the game for various utility, but you can't take OGIC out of the game and sort of wreck the economy in that way. Have I lost everybody?
Yeah, man, I was talking. I was asking you another question. Very good response on that question. My bad. So here's another question. Currently, almost all gaming platforms launch an own NFT market, and the purpose of those
Yep.
markets is to allow players to buy and sell items. Is your marketplace similar to those platforms? Are there any differences?
Yeah, right. So as I said in the last one, we do have a P2P marketplace. We're also going to have like an open marketplace. So the difference between the two is P2P will be a player trading either in-game their NFTs with other people. The open marketplace is where you'll go to buy new units, new set pieces for the battle map, any other cosmetics or any other items that we're selling, right? And that'll be the open marketplace will be where you can use native currency or in-game currency. And then the P2P marketplace will be the players will trade with each other using native currency.
Here is another one as well. This one's really interesting. This is actually one that I was going to ask. In Web3 gaming, there are many new games entering, but many barriers are present for new gamers. How will OG solve it? I think pretty much what they're asking is there's still a difference between Web3 and gamers, like actually just gaming. So how is OGI going to help bridge that gap to kind of connect? Because, well, I won't go too much depth, but yeah, how do you all plan to actually solve that? Because that is a huge barrier.
It is, and I think there's a few reasons for that, right? So traditional gamers hate the idea of someone making money off of their time. I don't know how to put that any nicer. They loathe the idea of play to earn. They loathe the idea of NFTs because they see them as a cash grab. I don't think they hate the idea of self custody because I think everybody's sort of been in that situation where they've spent a lot of time playing a game and then the community dies or they kind of lose a lot of the progress. But I think one of the biggest barriers is just a lot of the games just haven't been good. So that's kind of where I really wanted to make a game that I wanted to play, as we were talking about before. But I also think that one way to really open this space up is to find a niche. I don't think anyone's going to come to the Web3 space looking for the next Fortnite or DayZ or PUBG. I don't, especially because like if you've got a fully smart contract or Web3 based game, the technology is just not there to make those enjoyable. And I don't think the budgets are there either to make like a AAA style game. I know there's like Illuvium and those sort of ones that are out there, but I'm still not even sure what those games are. It kind of looks to me like Pokemon crossed with Destiny 2. So I think the way to win at the moment is to pick a niche and do that very well, which is, I'm picking probably the nichest of niche when it comes to tabletop gaming. But I think that that's one thing is that the community within those, and it's another reason why I think the only games that have ever done well are the tradable card games, like Gods Unchained and that, is because you've already got a community of people that are totally fine with, they pay a lot more in real life for like Magic the Gathering and Yu-Gi-Oh than they do paying for things like Gods Unchained. So in the same way, you've got these tabletop hobby people that, if you give them a lower barrier of entry and less risk when it comes to particularly, doing a bad job of the hobby part of it, I think you'll entice a lot of people. And it really does come down to, making the game enjoyable at the end of the day as well.
That's honestly the single most important thing. I think a lot of people get blinded with just the crypto aspect of a game when the core reason people play games is because games are fun. And if it's not fun, it's just not going to work. And I think just making that such a specific a specific goal of your game is to make sure that it's something you constantly play, it will reflect in your project by just having that one fundamental aspect. Is my game actually enjoyable and is it fun? If it is, you have yourself a good product. And the fact that you're trying to build a product that's for you, I don't think people understand how significant that is. Because if you do something that you really don't enjoy, no matter how much you do it, even if you try to expand on it as much as possible, it's going to go nowhere near as compared to someone that's doing something they actually love doing and that they have fun with doing it. When you have those two separate, when you have two separate ideas or perspectives going into a business, first the person that actually loves what they do, it's going to go so much further. So I actually, personally, from someone that loves business and loves very specific niches, that's one thing that I'm actually enjoyable, and I want to play your game because your game's for you, and that's really important as to me personally. So let's get into another question. Currently, well, no, that's not a good question. How does OGI promote fairness and equality for its players? Is the player's skill more important than the characters? I'm assuming they
Yeah,
mean, yeah.
yeah, that's a really good question. So as I said earlier, the big thing is between the player versus environment, or PVE, and player versus player, is that player versus environment, you kind of will have that power creep coming in, but that won't matter, right? Because it's you versus the AI in a scenario. And we're also kind of designing for that. We do have we have like a skill tree system for each faction to make them better. The idea is that as you grow your armies, as you build more armies, and as you get more powerful, you'll take on sort of harder scenarios. The objectives will be harder. The enemies will be harder, and it also, that's kind of how we're going to make for a longer campaign and a more engaging campaign. Now, where this question is coming in is really on PvP. So PvP will be fully normalized, right? And it comes down to partially how you outfit your army and what you're taking into a battle, the strategy you employ. Because we're running with tabletop rules, there will be rules for line of sight, there'll be rules for cover, there'll be rules for environmental rules. But at the end of the day, just like in Warhammer, this is a roll of the dice. And sometimes the roll of the dice can go in your favor, and sometimes the roll of the dice can't. So there is an aspect to strategy there, and there's an aspect of planning and tabling the right units. But when it comes down to two units facing off against each other, it really comes down to a roll of the dice.
Real quick, this actually is then part of the community question. You've used this terminology, roll of the dice. Can you kind of touch on that? What do you mean by that specifically?
I literally mean that it'll be rolling like a lot of probably D6 dice virtually, right? So the way that Warhammer works in the real world is like at various stages, particularly in combat, it's a roll of anywhere from 1 to a dozen or more D6 dice to determine, like, if you're rolling to hit, you're rolling to wound, you're rolling to save, you're rolling to see if something that died explodes and kills everything else around it, right? So like when I say roll of the dice, I literally mean this. It's like digital dice being rolled.
Game.
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of like again, maybe bad example. I'm not like the biggest gamer, but kind of like how Mario Party kind of like has like the little like square above you. You hit it. Sometimes you'll end up, a browser will pop up, and then if you like land on a certain thing, you mean that type of like rolled dice, like kind of a chance?
An actual one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dice. Yeah.
Okay. I'll be honest, man. I was wondering that the entire AMA, and I thought it was just like, yeah.
A turn of phrase? No, it's literal dice.
Okay. Yeah. I was immediately wondering. I was like, man, is he using this as like a sense of like a terminology, like an analogy? But okay, I actually get it now. So we'll ask him a couple questions, and Is it possible to play as a group in PvP and PvE game modes? Do you let them play against each other for a win-win reward? How do you ensure that Grim Reaper game is fair? And I think this is a really good question, because what happens if you are doing matchmaking and someone, like a team that you're about to play with, is just so much more leveled up with you? Are you going to have like some type of system to where their level is somewhat equivalent? So it's like, I forgot what it's called. It's like something.
Normalization.
Is that what it's called?
It's called normalization. And that's exactly what we're doing, right? So, if you and your opponent went in with the exact same loadout, there is no difference between your units and theirs. That's where it comes down to, the roll of the dice and how you position and the strategy, right? So, but to make things fair, you will agree, and this is particularly for PvP, you will be agreeing on the battle size, essentially, right? And when I was talking earlier about a point system, that's what I mean. So you'll agree that we're doing a 500 point or a 1,000 point battle, right? And that means that the makeup of your army has to be 500 or less. And what that might mean is you might have like a couple of really, really big units, and your opponent might have dozens and dozens of small units. And, is that the right strategy, right? Do you have like a couple of really heavy hitters, or do you just have like a lot of chaff and like one really strong unit, right? And that's where it comes into. So you won't have someone with a 1,000 point army versus someone with a 500 point army. You agree beforehand. Like the matchmaking will be like, I want to do a 500 point battle because that's really quick, or 250 point battle, which is really quick, right? Or I want to do like a huge slog, 2,000 points. There's just like dozens of units per team. Like will probably take a little while to complete, but you've made that decision. That's how we're doing. That's how PvP will work, because that's how it works in the real world, right? That's how, when you go and you play a game of Warhammer, you decide up front, like, this is what we're playing with, right? This is my list of units. This is what it's worth. Everyone kind of sees that up front so that they can strategize around it. It's very open, and that's how we're going to approach the PvP as well.
I think the word I was looking for was skill-based matchmaking.
Right. Again, it's a little bit less. It is a little bit less prevalent in this scenario, because you're not going to get someone that's just an absolute god at fast twitch, shooting like in like Apex or something like that, right? There'll probably be more of that in a proper tournament, right? And this is kind of like, again, real world. If we were to host a tournament, it would be a situation where there would be player pools, and then the winner from those pools would come together and verse each other, and you probably have like 2 or 3 tiers, right? So player matchmaking, like skill, again, this is less of a skill based, and this is more of a strategy and luck based.
I actually get what you mean. And honestly, Nick, I can actually introduce you to another project that actually helps, or well, not helps, but they actually host tournaments. And their entire business model is specific to just having a tournament bracket style for different types of games that people vote for. So a COD tournament, it can be a Fortnite tournament, or it can be other tournaments as well. And I think introducing you to them, and then having one of the games of the week to be our Grim Emporium, will be really beneficial to also kickstart some user bases. So honestly, Nick, I think you answered everything really well. I'm really excited to actually see the game, because I want to play it. I'm really interested in seeing what your vision of a fun game that you love is, because I'm just kind of curious on how that works, and honestly how fun it's going to be. It sounds like you're really passionate about gaming. You have a lot of knowledge regards to gaming, which is really good that someone that's the lead of the project actually knows what they're talking about. Not going to talk about any other previous bad AMAs we've had, but so far this has actually been a really good AMA. And honestly, man, I can't wait to discuss more about the actual building of the game and how the game actually fundamentally works.
Yeah, no, for sure. This has been fun. Like it's early in the morning for me here, but it's actually been really enjoyable to talk. And I sometimes have to stop myself because like I am a massive nerd at heart, right? So like if I get the chance to like dive into this sort of stuff, I can go probably a little bit too deep. But no, it's always fun to talk about this sort of stuff because it is a passion for me.
Really good, honestly. I think that's what really matters, other than just the idea or the actual game or anything. Like, do you actually love it? If you love it, then that's all, in my opinion. Not speaking from an investor perspective, but like an owner perspective. If you're starting a business, if you don't love it, there's going to be problems. And the fact that you're building something that you truly enjoy, I think when you have that combination of a passion and a business, you get really beautiful ends. So I'm definitely excited to see how everything goes out. I'll introduce you to some partners as well. Welcome to Zahnymous. I hope you had a great AMA, or not. I hope you had a great time at the AMA. Just say your closing remarks, and then I'll introduce you to some people.
Yeah, too easy. Look, all I ask is that if anybody does love tabletop gaming or turn-based strategy or is looking for, I would say, like a real Web3 gaming project, come on over, check out our good book. It's got like all the details we've put out at the moment. And just keep an eye on once the pre-sale comes out, as I said, we're going to have some of those marketing videos that are going to show off a lot more about the gameplay because we know that that's what people care about. That we are essentially building slowly because we want to make a good product here. So I invite everyone to come and just join us on this journey. And then, as we were talking about before, I'm open to any feedback, right? I'll be the first to tell you that's not the direction we're going, but I'll never shut anyone down for asking me a question either. So please come over and check us out.
Share your community, your Telegram community or your Discord in the chat, and feel free to join. Always do your own research at the end of the day. Always, no matter, even if it sounds like the best project in the world, or even sometimes even if it sounds like the worst project in the world, always do your own research for anything, for any type of project in general. So again, I think the AMA was great. You explained a lot about the actual game, how the system works, the mechanics, the integration of the token, why you're building it, your passion, your love for the game, your contract. We really went over pretty extensive process on everything. So honestly, you did a great job, Nick, and thank you for coming to the Zahnymous chat.
No, thank you. I'm going to go back to bed.
I'm going to end the recording.